finance, management, and back office operations, to name a few, will be important to our success. That being said, what I think is vital to our success is passion and breadth of community support. Being passed out to you right now is a map. I have a full-blown version. Every yellow pin on this map, and I believe it's every blue pin on your map, represents a family that has signed a letter of intent to enroll in our school. As you can see by this map of Livermore, we are well dispersed throughout the entire community, and we are not specific to any one particular region. On your map, it's notated in purple. On my map, it's blue as to the current elementary schools in the city of Livermore. One of the things that your map doesn't have, and I apologize for that, but this map shows in red are all of the various community outreach efforts that we have done in our attempt to reach out to the entire population and to be ethnically diverse throughout our school. The passion to make a difference in the educational, social, emotional, and physical lives of the children of Livermore, and the passion to provide choice in education for the children of Livermore. I would like to share with you some information about this amazing group of dedicated and passionate people I represent. When Lance Solomon, the current board's vice president, and I held our first town hall meeting to gather support on February 12th of this year, we were astounded by the turnout and support from the community. That night, 354 people showed up, and 120 of them signed to be on one of 9 committees. The outpouring of support was truly amazing and inspirational. Committees were formed, tasks were assigned, committee chairs were appointed, and in no time at all, it was as if a company had been born. 2 weeks later, on February 26th, we held our second town hall meeting. We had an additional 260 people in attendance, with an additional 60 people signing up to be volunteers by the end of the evening. It is this amazing group of people that in a mere 5 weeks' time put together the petition that you have before you. More importantly, they went above and beyond what Ed Code requires in order to support the petition and to ensure the highest level of education and safety for the children of Livermore. As an example, our Health and Safety Committee has developed 12 separate drafts of various policies ranging from bloodborne pathogen exposure control to integrated lead hazard control. Our Admissions Committee has developed a 21-page admission handbook to be dispersed during open enrollment. Our Fundraising Committee has held such fundraisers as wine tasting, scrapbooking, a garage sale, coupon books, license plate frames, restaurants, gala auction. We've been busy. Our Public Relations Committee has developed our website, established a hotline, coordinated press releases, got us access to public television, and held numerous information tables at schools, public buildings, shopping markets, and restaurants all over town. And to top it off, Public Relations Committee has done most of this in both English and Spanish in order to attract diversity at the school. Some of these people from this amazing group have made it here today, and I ask them to stand, please. I also want to take this time to share with you that the Livermore Valley Joint Unified School District, by a unanimous vote, has agreed in principle to allow LVCS to be a part of their LEA for special education services and to serve the students of LVCS with special education needs as if they were their own. It is my understanding that LVCS is the first charter school to come before the state board with a framework for the special education program already in place, and I would like to thank the district for helping to make that possible. LVCS is extremely unique in the charter school movement, at least in my opinion, simply due to the way we started. We didn't start out as a small group of people. We started out with a volunteer list, 180 people strong. We had input from parents, business leaders, teachers, classified staff, and administrators in designing the school. Our group is filled with passion, and it is this very passion that has brought us before you today. Our charter petition meets or exceeds every element of the requirement under Education Code. We have surrounded ourselves with experienced professionals to provide us with numerous charter-related services, and we have a passion to make the school one of the most successful in the state. Please grant us our charter, and we promise we will make you proud, but more importantly, we promise to develop our students into model learners for the 21st century. With that, I would like to turn it over to Chuck Cadman, an independent charter school expert. Thank you.
Thank you very much. My name is Chuck Cadman. I spent 38 years as a teacher, principal, district office person, and 15 as a superintendent. For the last 6 years, I've been a charter school consultant, but charter schools are not my clients. My clients are school districts and county offices of ed. So I was surprised to get a call last spring asking me to evaluate this proposal. And I said, charter schools are not my clients. But I was asked simply to be an honest broker and do the kind of an evaluation I would do if a client school district of mine received this proposal. And I said, okay, I'll be willing to do that, but you have to know I'm going to point out the weak stuff as well as I'd point out the strong stuff, just as I would do for any client. And that's what I did. The places that I thought that needed revision have been revised. So in deference to your time, I'm going to make this a very short summary, but I will be very happy to follow up with any questions if you want to know how I came to these conclusions. But I'm going to say to you, if you were my clients, I would say, folks, you know that I apply the law very strictly. For the last year, I've strictly applied the criteria from the Model Charter Schools application that you all developed. And I find this one of the top charter school proposals I've ever seen. I've evaluated about 90 of them in the last 6 years, and this is the top of the list. There are 3 things that I tend to give special emphasis to. I've been a part of several revocations or voluntary surrender of charters on the threat of revocation. And they have devolved around the educational program, around governance in the large sense of the word, and around budget. 1, 2, or all 3 of those. The educational program in this charter school is simply the most complete and well thought out and well designed and research-based educational programs I've ever seen. The governance program in the large sense, including school administration and all the nuts and bolts by which a complex organization like a school operates, have been well thought out, and they will flat work. The budget materials, as you have probably noticed, I don't know what to say. It's just the most complete and best thought out I have ever seen in all of the 90 charters that I've evaluated. So if you were my clients, I would say to you, this charter proposal meets and exceeds every requirement of law, every requirement of the State Board of Education model application, and if it is implemented as written, kids will learn and prosper and therefore deserves to be approved. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Madam President, members of the State Board, my name is Michael Hazelhofer. I'm the proposed principal of Livermore Valley Charter School. I need to come before you just to introduce myself. I have 33 years of experience in education. I have been a principal of elementary schools, both low-performing, high-performing, Title I, and most recently a high-performing elementary school. I've also done middle school, and currently I'm now a high school administrator in the Livermore Unified School District. For over the past 33 years, I've seen the high times and the low times for Livermore Valley Unified School District. Most recently, we've been going through some difficult times financially in the district, and I've seen programs erode slowly one by one. Class size reduction, specialist programs, et cetera, et cetera. We move on to that. During that time, there's lots of frustration with what we couldn't do, but what we have the opportunity to do now with the charter school. This is a wonderful opportunity for myself and the teachers within the Livermore Unified School District and without. The proposal before you has the core teachers of approximately 110 years of experience in education. They came together. We met regularly on a basis. I'm receiving daily emails from teachers interested in being part of the program. It affords opportunities for staff development and implementation of new skills and most recent research that has been out there for best practices. This is a wonderful opportunity for students. It's a wonderful opportunity for the teachers within. The charter law has created this opportunity, and Livermore needs to take advantage of that at this time. As stated before, Mr. Goldstein, the best and the brightest have come forward, and we're looking forward to the opportunity to get this thing off the ground, and with your help, we'll do that. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Does that conclude the proponent side? Thank you very much. The opponents on this issue?
Thank you, Madam President, and members of the board, and Superintendent O'Connell. Thank you for this opportunity to present an alternative view of the Livermore Valley Charter, a view of the perspective of the students of the Livermore School District. I'm Ann White, President of the school's Board of Trustees, and what I'm about to relate, I say in terms of presenting the financial impact of the implementation of the charter school. An environmental impact is required when we build a school. The financial impact of starting this school should also be known. 14,000 students attend Livermore schools. We're a low-wealth district with little or no growth. The board has cut expenses each year since 2001, $12.5 million altogether. In August 2003, we sent Alameda County a budget with insufficient reserve. According to AB 1200, a fiscal advisor was assigned. He reviewed our records, found neither mismanagement nor hidden caches of money. But he did have 16 recommendations to improve our health, financial health. In November, the board adopted the recommendations, including direction to close at least one school, and proceeded to implement the changes. In February, the board took action to close 2 schools, Almond Avenue and Arroyo Mocho Elementary Schools. These schools were open boundary schools with special programs and drew students from the neighborhood schools throughout the district. At that same February meeting, we adopted a transition plan to welcome families returning to their home schools. The large group of families that are supporting the charter school and the principal is from one of these closed schools, and the principal is also from one of the closed schools. In March, the district received a petition to form the Livermore Valley Charter. Subsequently, both the Livermore Board and the Alameda County Board denied the petition, and we're here today. No one doubts that the students of the charter school will receive an outstanding education. Their curriculum closely mirrors the Livermore curriculum. And thanks to the Livermore voters' approval of a parcel tax last week, we will be able to restore K-3 class size reduction and a wildly popular elementary science program. The 2 curricula will now be even more similar than expected. However, the financial impact on students of the Livermore School District will be substantial. The presence of this charter school will decrease our annual income by nearly $1 million, more than $70 less to serve each Livermore student. This decrease is almost 3 times the increase we received for equalization this year. After all our recent cuts, where might this money come from? We are currently negotiating with our teachers union, attempting to follow the fiscal advisor's admonition, and I quote, negotiate with the intent to align salaries and benefits with current economic climate and the fiscal condition of the district. Any realignment we realize will be sucked up to fill the $1 million hole. There are precious few other sources of money. Our fiscal advisor frequently reminds us and our public that we are very short-staffed. We have not had high school counselors since the cuts of '91. We have no assistant superintendent for business. We have no assistant superintendent for education services to support students and staff. And we have but 1 credentialed person in the curriculum office. Perhaps other districts faced with the financial impact of a charter school have not shared Livermore's history, and they have more programs and people still in place which can be eliminated. It seems that for the students of Livermore, AB 1200 and the charter school law are on a collision course. AB 1200 directs that we have a fiscal advisor and follow his direction. We followed his direction to close schools and are now faced with even more financial problems. AB 1200 was obviously written to protect local boards from themselves. Our advisor has the authority to stay or rescind any action the Livermore board may take, which would put us in further jeopardy. However, AB 1200 predates charter schools, and we are not protected from the charter school law. Innovation is not the issue. Livermore supports innovation. The closed schools were schools with unique programs. Quality curriculum is not the issue. The charter school students will have the Livermore curriculum. This is a precedent-setting decision. Approval of the petition will mean that when districts up and down the state try to improve their fiscal situation by closing schools, whether under the direction of an AB 1200 advisor or not, they place themselves at further financial risk. Please recall the words of Hippocrates, first, do no harm. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any further speakers on this? On the opponent's side of the petition?
Hi, I'm Rick Pratt with the California School Boards Association, and I'm actually not speaking as an opponent, but I did want to take this opportunity to link this to a much larger issue and problem that is going to be confronting all of us. And it's a serious problem, and Ann touched on it when she talked about this issue and the charter school law being on a collision course with AB 1200, which, as you know, was even strengthened this past year by AB 2756. It's a bill that Lynn Dousher carried on behalf of the governor. And under the provisions of these two legislations, districts that experience financial difficulty are subject to interventions and sanctions that can range anywhere from greater county scrutiny and county level involvement in their budget making, all the way up to a complete takeover of a district, which would also include firing the superintendent and removing the powers and authorities of the governing board. In the case before you, the approval of this charter school would have, as you've heard, negative budget consequences on the district. And so this would make the district subject to greater levels of intervention, maybe even sanction from the state and county level. Not because of any action taken at the district level or decision made by the district level, but because of decisions made here. And this is the paradox that you have before you. And the problem is that we can't have districts being held responsible for their own budgets at the local level if we make decisions at the state level that impede that ability and impede that responsibility. We can't have it both ways, and I think the case made by Ann is a good illustration of that. And it is really more than a dollars and cents issue, because the dollars we're talking about also translate into services for kids, and the budget impact of the charter school approval would have a negative consequence on the school district budget, not only because the district would not be able to generate the full savings from school closure, but also because of the loss of over 700 ADA. And I know you can think, well, they're not teaching these kids anymore, so they have a savings, and you're right, but the savings that any declining enrollment district can tell you that the savings that they realize in declining enrollment fall far short of the revenue loss that they experience as a result of declining enrollment. And so as much as we value charter schools, we can't let our rush to support them result in a reduced level of service for those kids who are in non-charter public schools, because they're our kids too, and you have an obligation to them as well. So what we need to do is find a balance between our need to accommodate and even encourage charter schools and the equally important need to make sure that services to kids in our non-charter schools don't suffer as a result. And we also need to find a way out of this paradox of local districts being held accountable for budget decisions that are made at the state level. So that's the larger issue that's before us, and we're looking forward to working with you, the governor, the superintendent, and the legislature, and try to find a solution to that. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that. Next speaker, please.
George Martinez with the California Federation of Teachers, and I would echo the comments of the previous two speakers. And keep in mind that as a district faces declining enrollment and financial distress, those programs that we find most dear to us, such as class size reductions, are the first ones to go due to the encroachment. There are other areas that encroach on the district's budget, such as special education, that we have no control and an obligation to fund. So consequently, the out option for parents that can and have the means is to form a charter school when a district is in financial distress and when a district is facing the elimination of those very dear programs, such as class size reduction. I don't rise in opposition of the charter petition, but I do rise to bring you to that very critical problem. And I think it's something that you're going to see throughout the state, especially in those districts that are in the coastal areas. And the district where I come from, Santa Cruz City Schools, has gone through this very same situation where we were facing school closures. We ended up closing, and the immediate reaction was to form a charter movement. So as you struggle with this problem, I think that we need to look at a bigger picture, which is to fully fund public education. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And is that, do we have any more public speakers on this side, on the opposition? No, okay, that closes the public hearing then, and we'll go on to board deliberation. You may.
I have a couple questions. I'd like to know, before there was talk of closing the school for economic reasons, was there any movement towards building a charter school in that district, or did it start after they talked about closing the school?
I think I better let someone from the petitioner's side or the district speak to that.
Please come up and tell us.
The first meeting that was held was after the schools were closed. However, my decision to explore this alternative and to find out more about it started before the schools were closed. Honestly, in response to all of the enrichment programs and other avenues that have been taken away from the children before the schools were closed.
Another question, if class size reduction is reinstituted and the science program is reinstituted, what other difference will there be in curriculum between your program and the Livermore School District?
Well, one of the things that we plan on offering at the school, and we've budgeted effectively for it and we have it planned, is that in addition to, well, first off, we have class size reduction up through 4th grade. Even though we're not funded, obviously, at 4th grade level, we have class size reduction up through 4th grade. In addition to that, besides having a full-time science teacher at the school, we also are going to have a full-time Spanish teacher, music, art, as well as physical education. Those teachers are absent, and I say credentialed in their respective areas. Those teachers are currently absent from the district because those programs have been lost. So while because of the Measure D parcel tax passing, it helps a little bit, I still would argue that music and art and Spanish and physical education should also be taught in the schools, and that's what we have planned. In addition to that, we're a K-8 program. Theirs is different, and some of our teaching methodologies are also different as well.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
My reason for asking this, and that, thank you, answered my
please.
question. I find myself in this paradox of thinking in that, having been a school board member, I know that it's critically important to balance your budget. You have to do that. I also am I believe in charter schools. I'm a proponent for charter schools because I think parents have to have the right or the ability to look at alternate curriculum, or if a school is failing, to look at other ways to be successful. What concerns me here is that we have schools that are scoring over 800. They're doing very well. That the parents, they really didn't start a charter movement until the talk of closing a school began. And I have a real fear in this area that if that happens, every time a school district has to look at hard issues, are we going to start a charter school? Then where else are the cuts within that district going to come from? So if it were a system where I see a school that's failing significantly, or where they're not being successful, or the parents are completely dissatisfied beforehand, then that's something that I think is a valid concern, but I don't see that here. I see it as a way of addressing the fact that we don't want our school to close, and I completely understand that. But yet I don't see that the answer is to start the charter if the school district cannot, it's going to hurt other kids at other school sites.
Respond to that? First of all, I would just like to remind the board that there are 5 reasons for denying a charter petition, both at the district, the county, and the state board level here, and none of those reasons have anything to do with whether or not it would help or hinder a district's financial condition. So it's basically the 5 headings that are on your attachment 1 here.
Then let's try this one. Let's go to finding number 1. And let's look at the very last paragraph, page 3 of 16, on finding one. And I'll just paraphrase and read the last paragraph. Staff notes that Livermore Unified School District is a high-performing district that draws on largely white population, approximately 68%, Hispanics at 19%, and Asians at 6%. However, the charter petition indicates that, that the demographic profile of students will be 79% white, 10% Hispanic, and 6% Asian. And so it looks like what's happening is they're not having a school that is actually representative of the district as a whole, and that they are actually encouraging whatever segregation that could possibly be encouraged. I'm not actually trying to paint that brush, take that broad brush and paint these folks with that, because that would be irrelevant and insincere. What I'm trying to do is create an opportunity to have a conversation around the dilemma that we find ourselves in that Mr. Pratt talked about. And that was the issue around trying to have districts be fiscally responsible and try to do the work that they need to do, and then find themselves in this dilemma where the decision that they make to be fiscally responsible and following the AB 1200 rules finds themselves in the dilemma where parents and teachers and district officials go to protect and start their school where they want to do some, where they want to keep their school open. So it's just a dilemma that we're all going to have to be dealing with. And other applications that have come before this board, one of the things that I've talked about is that the application should reach a high standard, a gold standard. There should be a very high standard for us to be able to approve them to be state charters. And what we've heard today is that this charter reflects very much the curriculum that is being provided to the students in Livermore already. We heard testimony that parcel tax was recently passed. The citizens in this community have recognized the need for greater dollars, and so they have passed the parcel tax, and now the district has the ability to go in and to replace many of these programs that the teachers and parents and students missed and wanted returned and put back in place. The voters spoke, and that has happened, and hopefully the district will respond. We also heard that the district has cut back on administration. They don't have staff in place that they otherwise other districts would have in place in trying to meet their fiscal needs. So it just seems that, and the other thing I wanted to talk about just briefly was the issue about fundraising. The gentleman who spoke, the proponent, talked a lot about a tremendous amount of fundraising that they had done. I have to tell you that I taught for 20 years and did 1 million fundraisers. It gets old. It gets very old. And the fundraising is exciting at first. You can have a lot of people involved, but at year 4, 5, and 6, to maintain and to continue the high level of fundraising that is required to run a school is very hard to sustain. And it takes a lot of individual effort. And I did read some concerns in the staff analysis that talked about the level of fundraising seemed to be overstated, that they were concerned in the staff analysis that this school not be too dependent on fundraising because of the vagaries of that kind of funding for a school. I feel very much concerned about this dilemma, and will find myself voting no today.
Thank you, Joe. I very much appreciate Mr. Pratt's comments and the impending, well, it's here actually, the dilemma that we face between AB 1200 and charter schools and charter law. I don't want to punish a district for being fiscally responsible, and I know it is difficult when you have to close a school. It feels like a very personal decision on the part of the board, and I really do understand that dilemma. And I also feel that the charter folks have made a good case for what they want and need. But what I want to ask, and perhaps someone from staff can talk about this, is where, in terms of the dilemma that Mr. Pratt outlined, we have our grounds for denial. It doesn't seem to exactly fit with what I'm hearing today. And to fix the Mr. Pratt's dilemma, our dilemma, how do we address that concern? on the fiscal side of this. What is the process by which we would take this up that rather, I know this specific case is showing us the problem, but Reed, do you want to tackle that?
I'm not sure at a legal level there is a problem. Clearly, the district has a significant issue, and I think that's what, pulls at all of us, is because we can imagine ourselves in those governing board meetings making the hard decisions that have to be made. But there's tension between lots of different aspects of law, like you must serve all special ed students like this, but here's only a little bit of funding. So it's hardly the biggest tension in the system between you got to have a balanced budget, and then you have to make some hard choices. And so, it's an issue. There's many of them around charter schools. There's many of them around special ed. There's many of them around a lot of aspects. I didn't hear anything that said, you're not ordered to close schools, and you're not ordered to, well, in AB 1200 you can be if you get down, low enough. But that doesn't, I don't know, it doesn't for me change the charter school decision, which is you still have to serve your special ed kids. You wouldn't argue, well, therefore I'm not going to serve special ed. You'd say, no, that's the law, and, here's what it is. So I'm happy if you want to go into, maybe what we can do is I can kind of come back later on. There are tensions. The fundamental one that the legislature set up with this is if you allow fiscal effects upon the granting district to be a criteria for turning down, then every charter school will get turned down. Because it's never good to lose enrollment. It's not as bad when you're growing and you just grow a little bit slower, but frankly, it gets you more efficient when you grow. So the challenge in the law construction is we are all tempted to balance for the whole. I mean, all of us are compelled about the $70 for all the students, and serving all the students is a compelling thing. And what I wrestled with is and this is a bit too emotional an example, but that's the fundamental philosophy behind the Berlin Wall, which is we're going to keep all the professionals in because it's better for the state. Okay, and if you get pulled into kind of optimizing for the state as opposed to the individual, you do crazy things like a Berlin Wall and trap people in. And so while I, have dealt with this issue, Los Altos School District had a very similar case, last 3 years in my area. I think fundamentally, in my view, it's better to go with the individual, which is what our culture has been built on, is trusting the individual in that way, and in my case, to give these guys a chance to operate. And I'm not going to deny that it makes life more difficult for the district. Okay, and that is the truth. But it also is the legislative intent in this experiment. The legislation specifically talks about to provide vigorous competition within the public school system, and that fiscal criteria is not a reason to turn it down. And so I would say, at this juncture, we ought to follow the legislation and the intent there. If someone wants to change the legislation to say fiscal reasons is a reason, well, then, that would be a different decision.
Karen wants to speak, but just the question would be, and then Ruth can go, is there any way to inject any kind of fiscal criteria into this at all? I mean, do you see that in the future, or you just think any of it shouldn't be touched, shouldn't be included?
Think about inter-district transfers. That's a less loaded than the Berlin Wall example. Okay, so we have tensions about inter-district transfer, and right now we have this thing where the sending district has to give permission, for the student to get what they see as a better opportunity. And to me, that doesn't feel like a good choice. To me, it feels like the students' opportunities are more important than the, preserving, in that case, the district right to disapprove them. That's one that it still happens today, right? And you have to, if you want to transfer, especially from a declining enrollment district, the district often says no. And to me, that feels like they feel they have some property right to keep the student because of the ADA. But it's not black and white. I certainly don't say that, because the rules of the district are really important.
Well,
Okay, we're going to go Karen, Ruth, Suzanne,
Thank you.
Joe.
That's
Well,
right.
I just wanted to point out that the law is pretty clear right now that there are only the 5 reasons that you can deny, but to give it some historical perspective, these laws were all written during the 20 years where we had incredible growth in California, and so we weren't closing schools. We're now turning that corner in different areas of the state. We will be closing schools, and I think there will be something that's very hotly debated in the legislature. They will need to give us guidance through the statute. It's not an easy statute to write because of what
Reed has described, there are a lot of competing interests, and so it will be hotly debated. And I think that what Mr. Pratt was saying is that he expects this to occur too in the future through the legislature.
Yes, because what I'd like to have addressed, if you would, because I did bring this question up before we opened session, and it is a fiscal issue as well, is our own staff, because we are growing the amount of charter schools that the State Board of Education and the State Board of Trustees is the State Department of Education and State Board of Education are responsible for. We now have how many charter schools that we are directly responsible for?
There are actually 6 that are open right now, 2 that will open next fall, and this will be a 3rd one if you approve it.
And how many staff people?
We have actually 2 staff people. And I also wanted to add that we do collect a 1% oversight fee on the revenues of the schools that we oversee also.
Of their budget, total budget?
Of their revenues, right.
Their revenues.
Yes.
All right, it's still, it's an issue that we have to address as an entity, because more and more of these will be coming to us because of the issues that are happening in Livermore with closing of schools, people deciding that they want to have a charter school and developing great charter schools, that they will be refused by their local school district and then the county, and then will be coming to us with really good plans like this is. But we also have to decide if that's what we are in the business of doing.
Can I answer the technical?
A simpler way of making the argument Reed was making is to say that every child has a right to public education. The institution of public education doesn't have a right to every child. And I didn't hear any discussion of bad things would happen to these children if they were allowed to form this charter school. I heard that the institution of public education in that community was going to suffer. And when I need to find my way in these kinds of things, I have to go back to the 5 criteria, and that isn't one of the criteria that's in front of us. And we can talk about in the future if we're going to change that. But it's like district reorganizations. There's 9 criteria, and we have got to keep our thinking to what's in law.
Right, so it's the grounds for denial issue is what we're looking at.
Right.
Okay, did Joe and then Don.
Actually, I'll pass and we'll let Don go.
Mr. Fisher.
Well, the question I have is how much increase per student is the parcel tax going to deliver into this district?
Increase in parcel tax is $120. Expect $3 million.
And what does that come out per student? Well, it'd be helpful. I mean,
the number was put out earlier that $1 million cost the district 70, so $3 million should be about 210, give or take, right?
so the district's getting 210 and losing 70.
Correct.
But the parcel tax says that we must use it to restore class size, we must use it to restore the science program, we must use it to put 2 counselors back in each high school, we must use it to lower the class sizes at the high school and the middle school. What's the other one? Because we can lower class sizes at the middle school, we can have some enrichment class and career class.
Thank you.
That's my question.
Don, does that answer your right? Okay.
Ruth, I had
Ricky?
a question. I apologize in advance if this is a bit elementary, but it's my understanding that one of the criteria for approving a charter such as this from the state board's perspective is statewide benefit. And is that not it?
No, not this one. Not on this one.
Not this one.
There's a class of charters for which that's a special condition when they're going to operate across the whole state.
Okay, and that's
That's
not
not this
here.
case.
Okay. All right. Jonathan? No? Anyone else? Any further discussion?
Ruth, could I respond to a little bit of the comment?
Okay, sure.
I just want to say that the 1% that is taken care of off the revenue does help to support the staff in combination with the federal public charter school grant programs. where I feel like we're really reaching out to districts and counties right now in many of the declining enrollment areas is to talk about what those districts could provide in terms of support and services to charters. In other words, it may be a charter that would be starting in a community from the closure of a school, an impetus for the closure of a school, that district then could look at in a new way of providing financial services, personnel services, support services. I think that's, as we talk about the tension, I just wanted to have it on the board's radar that we are looking at ways to work with districts to, I guess you would call it, disaggregate their services and be able to charge a fee for service to support the local community choice. And so, again, there are limited reasons why you can support or deny a charter. In the past, we have had charters on appeal that haven't been as strong as this one. And so I certainly respond to Board Member Bloom's concern about high quality. That's what we're all about in trying to put that standard before you. Thank you.
My only concern again is this. What services, you talked about kids, if the recommendation has been that you have to close 2 schools in that district, and the parcel tax is to restore some of the services that were lost before directly to students, and now if this is going to have significant impact on that district as a whole, what services are being lost by those other kids in those other schools within that district? Because we're talking about competition, but I don't see that we're raising to a significant level the curriculum that's going to be given to the kids at the charter over what's being given at another school. And that has nothing to do with the criteria for denial. I stand with Joe on criteria 1 and saying that the concerns there, that I agree that that would be a reason to look for denial.
Suzanne, just one moment, okay? And the gentleman in the back who's given the presentation, I'm sorry, I don't remember your name. You feel like you have to say one quick comment to us? I see your hand shoot up, and I just wanted to make sure that you were heard, but can you, if you can be very brief, please.
Apologize. The hard part about this is so many comments get thrown back and forth, and you hear it, and so I just want to try and see if I can help provide some answers to some of it, and then maybe that makes your decisions a little bit easier, or maybe I complicate it more. As far as ethnicity, I can tell you that one of the things that we actually purposely tried to do was when we had our letters of intent for people that were interested in enrolling in all of those little blue marks on the map that I passed out, we did not want to know the ethnicity of the people filling out those papers. We did not want to feel like we were excluding or including anybody because of their ethnicity. There is no question on that. So where that information comes from on the CDE's report is simply that they looked at the 2 schools that were closed in Livermore and said, hypothetically, this is where your population is going to come from, and that's the makeup of those 2 schools in Livermore, not our makeup. I can tell you that we have since gone to those people who would otherwise qualify for the school under the founding family status, and it represents a total of 117 students. We are at 61% Caucasian. That is less than Livermore, the city as a town, and that is less than Livermore as a district. We're at 11% Hispanic, we're at 3% Filipino, 6% Asian, 9% American Indian, 4% Middle Eastern, and we did have 6% that declined to answer the question. In addition to that, I think that, again, we keep talking about curriculum, and I mean, not to tell you what you already don't know, but uniqueness is not necessarily a criteria for becoming a charter school or being approved for a charter school. We have one of the most comprehensive and sound curriculum programs that exists. One of the companies that this board hires to go into districts, into counties, and to redevelop their curriculum has been instrumental in developing ours, and that's Inside Education Group.
Thank you very much.
I also want to point out one last thing, if I may, and that is that they've talked about $1 million coming out of the district. I also mentioned that we have a special education agreement in place with the district. As a result of that special education agreement that's in place, we are going to be paying back to the district through our fair share of encroachment nearly $260,000, which helps to bring that number down even further. Thank you.
Let me ask one question here.
I know, I'm sorry. It's okay.
Are you considering using one of the
have no-
closed schools as a facility for you?
We have formally applied to the district under Prop 39 for a facility next year. We have specifically asked for one of those closed schools. While no determination has been made, we have been led to believe that we will not be receiving either one of them and that they will do something else.
Well, how much rent would you offer them for those schools?
Well, we've offered them under what Prop 39 states we've offered, but we haven't even begun to bargain or negotiate.
That's
on
another
that.
way that they can get paid back.
Absolutely, and we fully agree with that. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Suzanne.
The other issue on this fiscal thing is that rarely is there one single thing that impacts a budget crisis. And even if that were true, and I want to be very careful of suggesting that there's any, but we don't know what series of decisions led this district to be in the circumstances it is, and I don't know how we can judge that, even if it were in front of us to judge that. The notion of looking at fiscal impact, I've seen so many times in the institution of public education, in my experience working in districts, where someone has suggested some kind of change, and everyone said, oh my God, the world will come to an end if this happens. And it happens, and people figure out how to be creative and make it work, and it's fine. And so I feel like allowing us to go there it allows for a lot of excuse making, and so I just wanted to make sure we were clear about that.
The grounds for denial issue. Do we have any further board comment on this? We have a motion on the floor in a second. Comments, questions? Ricky?
Ruth, in the final analysis, we're here for the students. If we honestly feel this proposal is going to somehow boost or increase student achievement or to better student success, then it's something we ought to support. And I understand Joe's concern as far as the fiscal impact, but as Suzanne stated very clearly, it's not part of the criteria that has already been established by statute. And so I wouldn't want to extrapolate. I think we should work within those confines. And if we honestly feel in a genuine way that this is going to boost student achievement, then it's something that I personally would support.
Thank you, Ricky. All right, all those in favor? Any opposition? Mr. Nunez? And Janine, sorry, Janine. Okay. Deborah, did you get that? Okay, motion passes. Thank you.
Celebrate when the hard work begins now.
Whoa. No, we have, that was 46. We have 45 and 49. 45 is...
Feels like it's 4 o'clock.
I know it does. All right, but I have good news. Joe, 45 has been pulled. Our supplemental, okay.
45 was pulled? Was it? I thought that was like a big deal.
Okay, yes. Thank you all. If you're leaving, if you could quickly clear the room so we can finish up. Long 2 days of board meetings. Thank you. Okay. All right, so if everyone, I'm going to repeat that. Number 45 has been pulled by the department, and I guess we'll see that back in January. So we'll have that discussion about supplemental service providers at that time. And then
you're going to do your closed session report before you do your last item?
Deborah. Karen will now report out a closed session.
The board met in closed session, discussed personnel matters regarding the executive director, and adjourned closed session. Thank you.
Could you close the door in the back, please? Thank you very much. Okay, with 45 being pulled, we only have 49 left.
And that would be my item. There's a government code provision that allows individuals to ask for the board to re-examine or amend their regulations, and we got such a request. Actually, we got 2 this board. I don't think we've ever gotten any, and we got 2 for this meeting. The one that's item number 49 has to do with someone who sells handheld computer systems, and they were asking that our regulations regarding the instructional materials funding realignment program
be amended in order to include an additional allowable expenditure so that these handheld computers could be included in the instructional materials fund purchases. Unfortunately for the petitioner, this list of allowable expenditures is spelled out in the statute, and therefore he needs a legislative change in order to get what he is requesting, and so we recommend that you deny this request.
So moved.
Second, by Suzanne. Got that, Deborah? All right, all those in favor?
Was this a student asking for this device?
Okay, so we have, do we finish that up? All those in favor? Did we have a unanimous vote on that? Just to, okay, and no opposition, thank you. And I just want to thank our state board staff for doing such a wonderful job, short staffed, so thank you, applause to you, well deserved. All right, with that, we are done. Thanks very much.